Sairam. Swami knows us long before we know him. And one of the things that happened in 1974 was a friend of mine in Greensboro, North Carolina. I was doing counseling at a program for the summer. And a friend of mine had a catalog where he ordered some books and some movies here and there and suggested that we order one and watch it. So we put up posters all over the place and hoped that a lot of people would come and see some spiritual aspect of life. So the day came, nobody showed up, just myself and this other person who I didn't know that well. And so we watched this movie, and it was Richard Bach showing the Abhishekam over Shirdi statue of Baba. Right away, the first thing that I thought with the Abhishekam was, that's just a show, but there's more here, I know it. And then he was walking around and Richard Bach was describing, how God is like the positive energy of the pole and the human beings were the negative energy of the pole. And so the attraction was going all towards God. And at that moment, I knew right away that Swami was God. And the rest of the film was just bliss. And I enjoyed very much watching. But then he packed it up, sent it back. I never saw this person again. And I never knew anyone else who knew anything about Swami. So I waited for a long time. I waited for about 12 or 13 years. I was in a bookstore in, I believe, New Hampshire. And somehow, I won't say it fell into my hand, but somehow a book found its way into my hand. And this book was the comparison of Baba's teachings with Jesus' teachings. And they had 2 columns. I bought the book right away, I read it. I really enjoyed the book. And at the end of it, I felt this was the highest vibration I had ever experienced. Now what? So the book sat on my shelf for a little bit. After some time, another 11 years goes by. By this time, Bernie and I are married. We've been married about 8 years at this point. And both of us had thought that we were both interested separately in things of interest of India, like the music, the food, the culture, the spirituality. But neither of us had ever talked about it in our marriage before until that point. And so I started looking for this book again. I wonder where that is. Maybe I could write to the publisher. So I finally found the book on one of my shelves, pulled it out, wrote a letter, and it was in Tustin, California. And I had a habit of writing to publishers, never hearing back. I would put in an envelope with a self-addressed stamped envelope. Please send me information. Just check, yes, no. This person is still around, whatever. And I would never hear anything back. I said, okay, one more time, I'll do it. Sent a self-addressed stamped envelope. And in 4 days, from Connecticut to California and back, I had received an answer from Tustin. And now there were 2 Sai centers in Connecticut. So I was able to contact 2 people. I started going on the Thursday evening in Windsor with Edna Ewell, and that was really, really nice. They had a good program for guests, for introduction for new people who didn't know anything about him. That was wonderful. And then eventually, because my husband was working in the evenings, we found the other center, which was the Farmington Center, on Sunday mornings. And that was run by Jatin Desai and his family. And Bernie and Jatin hooked up like magnets. They were just really got along well, like brothers. And so when it came time, Jatin had talked about having a trip. And he felt very strongly about getting an interview with Swami. So he took us as family. Well, by the time the whole group got together, there was 108 of us in the group as family, close family. So we got to Puda Party. I would say Swami knows well in advance who is coming. This was 2003 in August. We made this trip. I think we arrived on a Saturday, and on Monday, the timing had worked out for Baba to call a small portion of us. So some of us went in and had interviews. So I just have to laugh because, our personality doesn't leave us. Even when we meet God, our personality stays there. So during the interview, everyone, from what I heard afterwards, felt as though Baba was talking directly to that person. I felt that way, that he really spent a lot of time, looking at me and talking with me and things like that. But everyone felt that way. So he's got that way of being everywhere all at once. Yeah. So he called 3 of us in, and this lady, so some vibhuti had come around, and by the time it got into my hand, it was just maybe a few particles of dust. And at the same time, I felt important to give it to the person next to me. I didn't know her. She was kind of an acquaintance of an acquaintance. And somehow, when I looked up, Baba was looking at us. And so we went in, the 3 of us, my husband, Bernie, and myself, and this person. We went in, and Swami tested right away. One of the things, he directed most of his conversation to this person and asked what her salary was. So at this time, we were not making very much money at all. In fact, in order to get to India for the first trip that we made, we had to pay off our taxes using our credit cards. So we had some high debt, you know. But before the first time that we went, somehow enough money came in, and we had not been in debt since then. So we can only attribute that to Swami giving us the opportunity, and then us saying yes to him, and then it happening. So he directs the questions to her. What is your income now? She said $70,000. To me, that was like a lot. So, but I knew that he gives each one what we're supposed to have. And so if my heart had gone, oh, I want that, you know, it would not have worked. And I knew that. And so I just thought, I said to him mentally, you give me what you want me to have. You give everybody. And he said that her salary would be increased. So that was one thing that happened. But I was talking just like normal, like Swami, blah, blah, blah. You know, you forget that he's God. And when he's in front of you, he's the most divine being I've ever experienced. And we call him God because we haven't known anything higher than that. And his energy cuts to the core of our being. And at the core of our being, we know who we are. We know who we need to become. We know what to do. We're always given the choice of right or wrong. Our conscience always tells us if we listen to it. And so that energy in us, that divine awareness in us, is activated by being with this person, Sai Baba. And that's why we call him God. It's just sort of a shortcut for all that energy. And it's wonderful to be in his presence and to be with him and to carry him in our hearts. Wherever we go, we're never missing him. His energy is always here. We just have to go back in and activate it. So 3 important moments with Swami were in Hartford. I feel that he comes thinly disguised now. So I'll tell you how we got to Hartford. We got to Hartford because we were working in a place which was a freight bill auditing. And this started in 1990. And Bernie, I got a position first helping the woman in the office. It was just herself and her husband. And so I was helping her with her office paperwork. And then it turned out they needed some more auditing. So Bernie came in. We were both at a place where we could shift over, and so that happened kind of naturally. So we were there for about 5 years, and what happened was we had gotten involved in the neighborhood, and there was an organization which was trying to do good, but this particular couple didn't like what they were doing, thought that they were pulling away from, you know, what would have worked better in Hartford. And so we went on a vacation in 1995, and when we came back, they had closed their doors to us with all of our work inside. And so we had to scramble a little bit. But by then, we had already bought a house in the neighborhood so that we could easily walk to work. So this neighborhood is one of the poorest in the country. It's Hartford. It used to be second only to Brownsville, Texas. I think what happened was there were some tobacco fields, and they brought up a lot of people to work in the fields. And then when the fields kind of died down because smoking went out of habit, they were still living there. Also, the insurance companies were there, and they built a lot of apartment buildings with one-bedroom studios in it, so that secretaries and other people could live in those and then go walk to work and then work there. So that's sort of the setup. So once we got there, we had that. So I ended up, my my passion is music. I went back to music. My husband's passion, he was a salesperson at that time. And then he's done other things since. Now that he's retired, he's got more service on his hands that Swami has given him than ever before. And I'll let him tell you a lot about that. But there was so much need in Hartford. The neighborhood organization was one way that we were able to do some things there. But the couple of churches that we've been involved with were other ways. And so Swami has come to us. This is kind of a roundabout way of getting there. But as people in the neighborhood, because it's a big enough city that you don't know everybody, it's not, but it feels small enough that you feel comfortable. So one time there were, we get a lot of snow. The plows come in the middle of the night, and by then it's all icy snow. And so they plow it up, and it gets on the sidewalk, and you have to shovel all over again. So one particular was like a huge boulder of ice right in front of my driveway. And it was either late at night, I think it was 11 at night that time, and I knew I had to leave early in the morning. This boulder was higher than my knees. It was just huge, made of ice. And I'm out there at 11:30, trying to chop it into bits. And along walks this person and says, "Can I help you?" That's so unusual. And so he helped me do it. I asked his name, when we got it all broken up. Tyrone. Thank you so much, Tyrone. Shook hands, and he walked on. I said, "Where are you heading this late?" "I'm back to New Britain." New Britain is where, and he just walked and he disappeared. That's one thing. Do you want to hear all my stories? I have a lot of them.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So another story, this was the beginning of a long saga. The first one was, I was outside working in my yard, and along comes a person down the street. Now, even in Hartford being a very poor city, everyone has shoes. Not like in India where people don't have shoes. So this person, though, was walking along barefoot. He was tall, over 6 feet, 6'2", something like that. Hefty, but not too large. But he was big, and he had a big presence about him. Personality was big. And he came along and goes, "I need some shoes." And so I'm thinking about it. And I said, I looked at his feet. They were kind of large. I thought, well, my husband wears a certain size, but it wouldn't fit this person. Now, I was really trying to think of some ways to assist him, but not coming up with any answers. At the same time, in my head, is going through, recently in the neighborhood at that time, there had been a person impersonating a police officer. He had a police uniform, he had a badge, and he would knock on people's doors. They'd let him in, and then he'd rob them. So I thought about this at the same time. Maybe this is the person. I didn't know who he was. So both of these things are going in my mind. The one, the angel on one side, the devil on the other side, whatever it is. Do you have enough time?
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought about it, and I thought, well, the shoes aren't going to fit you that my husband has, but right around the corner there's the Salvation Army is there, and they have clothes. You can go find something there. It's easy. I'll pay for it if you need. No, I just need some shoes right now. So we walked on, all in a big huff. So I went upstairs, finished. That night I was reading the Shirdi book, Sai Sacharita, and I was in the middle of the book. So I turned to the page where I'd left off, and all of a sudden there's a story about Shirdi Baba walking into different towns, and he would ask people for a pair of shoes to wear. And they would give him a pair of shoes, and whatever size they would grow or shrink to fit his foot. And I thought, oh my goodness, was that Shirdi Sai? And I refused him a pair of shoes? Oh my goodness, this is awful. So, closed the book, went to sleep. Some time went by. Much later on, I ended up going back and reading Satyaritra again, and that story is not in the book. It was a story only for my need at that time. Swami telling me this was an opportunity, and I missed it. So some years pass. Second opportunity. I get a call from my sister in North Carolina. My mother had a stroke, and she was not doing well, and we should come and see. So I flew down the next day, and when I came back from the trip, you know, how we are when our parents are going. I was kind of in a state inside. Internally, I was inside. Then the next morning, Thursday, was garbage day, so I was putting the garbage out. Along comes a woman in the driveway, and she's saying, "I want some hot chocolate for breakfast." I said, "Oh, well, I don't have any hot chocolate. I'm sorry. Is there something? I have some fruits. I have some juice." No, I want hot chocolate. So, well, I'm sorry, I don't have any. You'll have to go, you know, and I told her where the shelters were. Everyone knows where the shelters are. And we provide food for the shelters. Everyone knows where they are. So I went back in the house to get the last bag to go out, and she had walked in the house, you know, in my hallway in the back. I said, "You're not supposed to come into people's houses." And I kind of shooed her out. I said, I can tell you where to go and get breakfast. They have free breakfast. I can take you there if you want, but I don't have any hot chocolate. I'm sorry. I shoot her out as she's walking down the driveway. And of course I felt bad. And I kind of yelled, "My mother is dying," you know, and walked away. Well, it took me a while. And then I realized she was 5 feet tall. She had an orange cap on her head. And no one has ever walked into my house before. And I just shoot away Sai Baba out of my house. Second time. First time denied shoes. Second time, shoot out of my house. It's interesting now because I play for a Catholic church. I play piano and organ at a Catholic church. And they have this prayer. I am unworthy that you should enter onto my roof. And I say, when they say that, I say, I am worthy that you enter under my roof. I am worthy. Even though I shooed you away once, I'm worthy. And so this sometime went past after this. The third experience came about. You would think by now I would have learned, but so many years went by. I was driving to school, and by this time I'm last minute late, get there right at the minute in time to get. And I play the piano for singers. That was my job at the time, and a little bit now still. So getting there I had to be in place at the piano at a certain time. And I had no time to spare. Along the way, there's a Jamaican woman. She had a green turban on. You know, this has happened to me a couple of times now. When the eyes shoot into you, it happened, and she dropped to the ground. And still, I didn't stop. I'm telling these stories because you don't have to be a marvelous person. All you have to do is learn from your mistakes. You don't have to be even if he tells us we get hit, he can hit the coconut 21 times for some people, 200 times for other people, 1 time for another person. I'm a coconut that needed a lot of hits. Okay, so we're all going to get there. Just the coconut has to be hit a number of times. I went on to work, and I couldn't stand it. I went and saw the person who was the teacher, and I told what happened, and I went back. And of course, the lady was not there. 3 times. I'm feeling totally like I'm going to go to hell. Totally. So 2 final segments to this long, long story. So we're in Puda Party. And there are 2 sisters there telling stories to us. They're friends of Sathya Sai, and so we know them through that, and we visited every time we went there. And so the women are telling us these stories about at Christmas time when they put up life-sized cardboard of the 12 disciples of Jesus. And so Swami comes by and is looking at these 12 disciples, and he gets to the one who is Peter. If you don't know the story of Peter, Peter denied Christ 3 times, and he had foretold, Christ told him that he would deny him 3 times when he was being taken on the cross, and the cock would crow after the 3rd time. This is exactly what unfolded. Peter denied him 3 times. A woman said, because he was here now, you know, with the cross on his shoulders, a woman said, "You were with that man. I saw you. You were with him." "No." And he said it 3 times. "I don't know him." He said it 3 times, and the cock crowed. And he knew that he completely failed his Lord. that's how I was feeling. I completely failed my Lord. So they're telling this story about Swami walking past and looking at the cardboard of Peter. And he said, "Peter, cheater." And he walked on. And I was totally crushed at this point. I felt like, Swami would hate me for the rest of eternity. It was awful. So then we're back home and we're doing our feeding. And at the feeding, we always, if there are any leftover food, those of us who are serving will, partake of the food. So most of them are sitting there. There's many allergies, so I'm not partaking. So I'm still at the tray, the last one there, cleaning up on the counters. And there's enough food left for maybe 2 people. In walks a very last-minute person. He's very tall, over 6 feet, 6'4", 5. And he comes to the counter, and I said, "Would you like some food?" "Yes." So I put it on the plate, about half of the portion, gave it to him. And I'm looking at the last portion, and I thought, well, there's no sense. No one else is going to have this. Would you like to finish this out?" He said, "Yes." I put it on his plate. He took the plate. He goes, "We don't waste food, and we don't waste time." Now, who says that? Swami says that. Person off the street wouldn't normally say that. And I thought, oh, finally I was able to serve Swami something. And then I believe it was the same day, he had gone, everyone had gone. And I walked out and walked up the stairs, and there was a man who had on a pair of red pants. But there was something about him that looked, he was completely enfolded in light. There was something about him. His red pants were immaculately beautiful. There's just something about him. And I didn't know what to say. And I walked around the corner, and I was just astounded to see this person here. He was an African-American man. And I just looked at him, but I didn't say anything. And I walked a few steps to catch up with my husband. And he said, "God bless you." And I said, "God bless you. In fact, you are God." And I just laughed and walked away. He didn't say anything more. But I knew that I had felt, some relief from all this pressure that I'd felt over many years now, at least a decade. So then we're in Puda Party one more time. This is the final part of the long story. We're in Puda Party, and I'm feeling this crush of the weight of the Peter syndrome. I call it the Peter syndrome, the guilt. And on the last day, on the last morning darshan that we had before leaving, Swami's out. He didn't necessarily come by or anything in particular. And he was just there on the podium. And I was somewhere, in the audience. And there's some bhajan going. And all of a sudden I was feeling Shivoham, 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 Shiva. I'm Shiva. I'm Shiva. I'm Shiva. And the whole Peter guilt lifted off of me forever. It completely lifted off of my shoulders. I don't know if I'd been carrying it since 2,000 years ago, but it was gone. This was the greatest miracle Swami could have produced. All the lifetimes that I've lived for all the 1,000, 2 millennial is completely gone from me. And all of that weight is completely lifted off of me. There's no more incredible miracle that I can think of.